Hello, 7th graders, and welcome to tonight's lesson 4-1 on divisibility and factors. In tonight's lesson, we have two main objectives. First, you will be able to use divisibility tests, and secondly, you will be able to find factors. So we're going to skip the warm-up for today and go straight to the lesson. And first, objective talks about divisibility. Well, in order to know what it means, we need to know what the word divisible means. And it is when one integer can be divided evenly by another integer. So for example, 20 divided by 2. All right, that is 10. That is considered divisible because it goes in there evenly. You get a whole number. But if I did 20 divided by 3, that is not divisible because you'd end up with 6 and then 2/3. So it's not a whole number. So in order to be divisible, you have to get a whole number answer. Now we have some rules that can really help you out, so you don't have to divide them out every single time. Instead, you just use these rules. Now here I have listed the divisibility rules for 2, 5, and 10. Now an integer is divisible by 2 if it ends in 0, 2, 4, 6, or 8, or what you would consider the even numbers. So it ends with an even number, or it's an even number, 2 goes into it. The next one we talk about is a number 5. Now, a number is divisible by 5 if that number ends in 0 or 5. So for example, 120, because again, that last digit is 0. If it's 121, it is not, because it doesn't end in 0 or 5. And then finally for 10, it's considered divisible by 10 if the digit ends in a 0. So again, if I had 260, well, it ends in a 0, so that is. But if I had 3,162, it is not, because it doesn't end in that 0. And then at the bottom, we just have a few general things to keep in mind. An even number is when it ends in 0, 2, 4, 6, or 8. And an odd number is when it ends in a 1, 3, 5, 7, or 9. So it's not divisible by 2. So here we have a few rules. You need to decide, is the first number divisible by the second? Explain. So here we have A, and we'll do A together. 1,028 by 2. Well, if you go back to the rules, a number is divisible by 2 if it ends in an even number, a 0, 2, 4, 6, or 8. So this number ends with an 8, so yes, it's divisible. And then we need to explain why. Well, it ends in an 8. We know it's divisible by 2 because it ends with an 8. There we go. Now your job is to do B and C. So you have to decide, is 572 divisible by 5? Yes or no, then explain. And then do C, 275 by 10. So go ahead and do that now. Or pause me and then do this. All right, so let's check your answers. For B, we had to decide if 572 by 5. Well, if you go back to the divisibility rules for 5, a number is divisible by 5 if it ends in a 0 or 5. Well, this ends in a 2. So no, it ends in a 2. And then I could write it has to be a 0 or 5. Something like that. So, because it ends in a 2, it doesn't work. It had to end in a 0 or 5 to be divisible by 5. And then C, 275 by 10. Well, again, I go back to the divisibility rules for 10 this time. A number is divisible by 10 if it ends in a 0. Well, 275 ends with a 5, so no. Or I could write that number. 275 ends with a 5, not a 0. There you go. So that's the first piece of your lesson. However, we have 2 more divisibility rules, and unfortunately, they're not quite as easy as the last 3. So we need to know if a number is divisible by 3 and 9. And the way we do that is with these rules. An integer is divisible by the number 3 if the sum of its digits is divisible by 3. So what you end up doing is with whatever whole number they give you, you add those numbers together And then if that number, that sum, is divisible by 3, so is that number. And 9 works the same way if the sum of those digits are divisible by 3. So I have a few examples down below. We have the number 282. All right, so what I'm going to do is you need to find the sum of these digits. So I'm going to add 2 plus 8 plus 2. So I split up this number, and 2 plus 8 is 10, plus 2 is 12. So now I look. All right, I have the sum. Well, it's divisible by 3 if the sum is divisible by 3. So 12 divided by 3. Well, that works. So yes, this number is divisible by 3. Then we can try 9. 12 divided by 9, we're not going to get a whole number. So this number is just divisible by 3. All right, we're going to do the next one together too. 468. Well, 4 plus 6 plus 8 is 18. Well, I take a look. I can do 18 divided by 3 and get a whole number. And I can do 18 divided by 9 and get a whole number. Because 18 divided by 3 is 6. 18 divided by 9 is 2. So both 3 and 9 are numbers that go into it. And now we can do 1017. And I want you to do this one on your own. So again, add up those digits and determine if 3 and 9 are both factors for it. Go ahead, pause me now and do that one. All right, so let's check this last one here. Well, again, I add up the digits. 1 plus 0 plus 1 plus 7, and I get 9. Well, 9 divided by 3, well, that would give me a whole number, so that works. And then I have 9 divided by 9. Oh, I get 1. That works. So both 3 and 9 are factors. All right, and again, we have these two now, and it works just like the last few we did. Again, I want you to do all of these by your own, or by yourself, and then come back. So for A, you're just deciding. 1028, if you use that rule, is it divisible by 3? And then for B, 522. So go ahead, pause me now and do those ones. All right, so let's check A. For these divisibility rules, again, I have to add up the sum. And I get, well, 1, 3, 11. 11 is not divisible by 3 evenly, so no. And then B, well, 5 plus 2 plus 2 is 9. 9 divided by 9, oh, that one works. So, yes. All right, so that's the first objective. Now we're moving on to the second one. And into this one, we look at factors. Factors are integers that you can multiply together to get a target number. So any numbers that you can multiply together to get to that target. So here I have what numbers can I multiply together to get 20? Well, I could do 1 and 20. And I like to spread this apart and then fill in the inside. So I can do 1 times 20. Well, I could do 2 times 10. I can't do 3, but I can do 4 and 5. And then, of course, you just work backwards. 5 times 4, 10 times 2, 20 times 1. All of these are considered factors of 20 because they all go together and can be multiplied to make 20. So here we have to list the factors for A is 10, B is 21. I want you to do this one. So do both A and B, and when you're all done, again, come back, see if you have it right. Again, list every factor. So go ahead, pause me now. All right, so we're looking at A here, which is 10. Well, I like to do, again, I know 1 times that number always works. So then I look at, well, the next number is 2. Well, 2 times 5 does give me 10. If I try 3, well, 3 times 3 only is 9, so that doesn't work. 4 times 2 is 8. And then it brings me to 5. So these 4 are factors of 10. Now we have to do B, which is 21. Again, I know 1 times 21. Well, that's an odd number, so 2 doesn't go into it. But 3 times 7 does. And let's see, 4, nope, 5. I think it's just these 4. So for B, you should have 1, 3, 7, and 21. All right, now we have a word problem to practice this. Miss Washington's class is having a class photo taken. Each row must have the same number of students. There are 35 students in the class. How can Miss Washington arrange the students in rows if there must be at least 5 students, but no more than 10 students in a row? So we know they're going to have a picture done, and there are 35 students total. All right, we need to figure out if we have to have the same amount of students in each row. That means they have to break apart evenly. You can't do 4, then you do 6, 7, then 3. So you have to have the same number of students. But we want at least 5 students in a row, but no more than 10. So it has to be between 5 and 10 students in a row. So I'm going to give you one, then I want you to think of the other ones. I know, well, if I have 35 students, I could do 5 rows of 7 students. All right, so I could do that. And now I want you to think. Try to come up with any other groups that you could do. Again, it has to multiply out to be 35. So you have to think of factors of 35. All right? And then think of any other way you can switch it. So go ahead, pause me, and I can tell you this. There's one more way. Can you find it? So go ahead and do that now. All right, so we're going to take a look at this one. Well, we can do 5 rows of 7. However, this one's tricky because we can actually switch it. We can do 7 rows of 5 students because 7 times 5 is still 35. But this is different, 5 rows of 7 or 7 rows of 5. And now I'm trying to think of other factors of 35, and all I come up with is 1, 5, 7, and 35. So these are your 2 answers. There we go. That is your lesson for tonight. So I will see you in class tomorrow. Have a great night.